Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Ye anilo premadana Oruna pracho pracho Ye anilo premadana Oruna pracho premadana Purna Prachu Eno Prabhu Kota Gela Chaya Aku Ahama Kahamora Swarup Rupa Pasanatan. This water is dry. Kadasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Ahamura Pata Yuga Aha Kavira Pata Yuga Aha Kavira Ekakale Kota Gela Goranatara Gela Asane Kutipo Mata Anale Pasibo Hito Bata Kalasibo Goranga Gunera Nidi Kota Gele Pabo Se samba sangira sangi yelo yelo bila yelo bila se sanga haya kande narutamada haya kande narutamada Yanilo Premadana Oruna Patu Premadana Oruna Patu. Who brought the treasure of divine love, who was filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality? Srinivas Acharya gone. Where is my Srup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where is my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all these devotees, in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. So, read a little bit here about Sri Govinda Ghosh. Sri Govinda Ghosh is an intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya. Was known for his sweet kirtans at the annual Jagannath Puri Rath Yatra festival. Lord Chaitanya would at once begin to dance whenever Govinda Ghosh would sing. Govinda Ghosh and his brothers Vasudev and Madhava were eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. He made his home at Agra Dwipa, Vasudev in Tamluk, and Madhava Ghosh in Dain Hat. Govinda Ghosh Thakur's house is not far from Agra Dvip and Kashipur Vishnu Tala. Some are of the opinion that Vaishnav Vatala was his birthplace. Govinda Ghosh participated in Mahaprabhu's Leelas in Srivas Anga, in Narga Sankirtan at the Kazi's house, in the house of Raghava Pandit. This is before he took sannyas. That's how long he's been associated with him. And then after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas during the Rath Yatra festival, he was the lead singer in the 4th Kirtan group, accompanied by his 2 brothers, Chota Haridas, Vishnu Das, and Raghava Pandit. So it's his 2 brothers. Chota Haridas is not his brother. Then there's Vishnu Das, Raghava Pandit. These are described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We haven't got to that yet, but in our reading, but this will all be described, how these were all broken down. Keshwar Pandit joined this group as a principal dancer. And we'll also read about him. Keshwar Pandit was Devananda Pandit, who was a Mayavadi that read Srimad Bhagavatam. He liked reading Srimad Bhagavatam, but he spun it always in a Mayavadi way, and then he had this issue with different individuals, primarily with Srivas Thakur, which was, he was actually had to be carried out of his assembly because he was being emotional over the reading, because he saw it in a personal way. But he later, they got the mercy of Keshwar Pandit. And by the mercy of a devotee, he became a devotee. And then Lord Chaitanya eventually, how do I relieve myself of all the blasphemy that I've done to Vaishnavas? Because I've knowingly and unknowingly, I committed so many offenses. So Lord Chaitanya instructed him that to serve the devotees, that's how you relieve yourself of the sinful activities. And also that you should write poetry, glorifying the devotees. So in this way, he got these instructions on how to relieve himself. So these are good lessons for us, because knowingly and unknowingly, sometimes, even in association with devotees, we sometimes do things and say things that cause some emotional harm to another living entity, not just devotees. Okay, so on Mahaprabhu's direction, Govinda revealed the Gopinath deity from a black stone in Agradweep. Mahaprabhu was also instructed him to get married. The story goes that Govinda Ghosh's wife and son both died untimely. As he grew older, Govinda began to wonder who would perform his last rites for him, as it is considered important for one to have a son who can do the Shraddha ceremony on his behalf. He had a dream in which Gopinath appeared to him and said, "Don't worry about this. I will perform the Shraddha ceremony for you myself." When Govinda Ghosh finally passed away, Gopinath offered the Pinda on his behalf. Gopinath continues to perform this ceremony every year on the anniversary of Govinda Ghosh's departure from this world. This takes place on the Krishna Triyodashi of the month of Chaitra. Vasudeva Ghosh's disappearance day is on the 2nd day of the waxing moon in the month of Kartik. This is not Kartik. Something's not right here. But it's on our calendar, unless I've done it wrong, It's just on our calendar. So anyway, he's a nice devotee, and we glorify him, and what do you think? What, his appearance? No, I think it's not the first time I was wrong. It won't be the last. Yeah, Govinda Ghosh's disappearance. It's on the Vaishnav calendar. I get it, the one that's sent out. Yeah. So anyway, moving on. We have no choice but to move on. Somebody else can make those corrections, but okay. So we're in our Chaitanya Charitamrita reading, and we are left off at text 221. Madhya chapter 8. And I was listening to a lecture for Prabhupada on the way back from Alachua, and it's kind of related to this. A Srimad Bhagavatam lecture, and he talks about how spiritual life begins when one is pious. And piety, pretty much, when one was following the regulator principles, one becomes like a human being. That's what a human being actually is. That they're not animal life, and that devotional service. He's quoting Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, Text 25. I thought that was easy for me to remember. When I got home, I could look it up. And he said that it states that Prabhupada was stating that devotional service begins when one is at the level of nishta, when one is fixed. That's when it actually begins. At that stage, we're practicing to be a devotee. We're not quite there yet until we hit the stage of nishta. And that's a very elevated platform, nishta. It's a of course, Prabhupada talks about it. Just the fact that we're on the spiritual, we become pious by following regulated principles. That's spiritual life. It actually begins there. But oftentimes that could be Vaikuntha. That's the shadow effect of worshiping Radha and Krishna. He was talking about, we've mentioned this before, our deity worship isn't worshiping Radha Krishna, but it's Lakshmi Narayan. We worship it in that form, with awe and reverence that we worship. And so, and then there's that verse 126, it says that the supreme occupation or dharma for all humanity is that by which one can attain the transient, loving, devotional service to the Lord. It has to be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. And that's the stage of nishta. Because the next stage is ruchi, taste. So we start relishing the actual. And in those samanarthas can actually, this is just described in the Madhurya Kandambini, that even though most anarthas are gone, there's still a chance that one can commit an offense. We always have to be aware of the chance of committing some aparad with some devotee or seva aparad. There's different types of aparad of devotional service. So in 221, that if one worships the Lord on the path of spontaneous love and goes to Vrindavan, he receives the shelter of Rajendananda, the son of Nanda Maharaj. This is kind of like a review. We're going back a little bit, a couple of verses before we start. We pick up, which is interesting. This is the spontaneous. This is when we hit this level of nishta. Then we start also the spontaneous devotional practice. It also begins on that level. So 228, he says, therefore one should accept the mood of the gopis in their service. In such a transcendental mood, one should always think of the pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna. And again, these are elevated pastimes, but these are a goal by which we can achieve. We got to have a direction. Where are we headed? What do we understand? We always got to understand why we're doing what we're doing and where we're headed. Or we're just lost. We're just, not knowing what's going on. What Prabhupada also talked about, I think not last time, but last time I read in the purport, there was a purport at the end of it. Prabhupada said if you think that you're a gopi, it's an offense. That was like the last of that purport, the last time I gave class here. I remember that, the very end of that, because we reading these things in Madhya Lila here in chapter 8, and these are very confidential in Prabhupada's lecture yesterday. He was on the Bhagavad Gita 9, chapter 9, and I think it was text 2. And he talked about how this Raja Vidya's confidential knowledge. And he said that one has to be invited. It's not like it's just out there. You've got to share it with somebody, or somebody shares it with you. And it was really kind of interesting when he said only selected persons can take up this process. And in one sense, some people on a mundane level might think that it's prejudicial, who's qualified and who's not. But Lord Chaitanya gave it to everybody. There was no, that's what we're doing, this is preaching. we're offering it to anybody who will take it. And that's what Lord Chaitanya did. It was really kind of interesting because there's a number of pastimes. Like when we went to Varanasi, Lord Chaitanya said, I went there, I had all these wares, but no one was a taker. He found nobody to buy what he was given. So he's out there giving it to everybody. And that's our mission also. That was Prabhupada. He came to give to whoever wanted to take it, to spread it. It's here. So it's up to each individual to take to the process. So in Prabhupada in that lecture yesterday, he says, only selected persons. Those are the ones who are reciprocating or making an attempt to follow. Of course, it was interesting about this, there has to be departments about the disease condition. Where's that department at? So it was a very nice lecture, as all his lectures are, And then ultimately the pastimes were closed down when we got this letter from Advaita Acharya at the end. The market house is closed. And Lord Chaitanya at that time was almost entirely internally worshiping the Lord and all the moods of ecstasy that he was experiencing. And but his devotees carried the process on. And that's where our mission, left behind, Prabhupada. A lot of work that's left to be done, that we continually are always inviting people to come to the temple. There's so much propaganda put out, economics is put out, money, books is distributed, all invitations. And it's out open for anybody who wants to take to the process. So we get this verses that brings us up to the current verse. After thinking of Radha and Krishna and their pastimes for a long time, after getting completely free from material contamination, when it's transferred to the spiritual world where the devotee attains an opportunity to serve Radha and Krishna as one of the gopis. So that's text 229. And so we'll read the purport to that text. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that the word Siddhadeha, perfected spiritual body, refers to a body beyond the material gross body, composed of 5 elements, and the subtle astral body, composed of mind, intelligence, and false ego. In other words, one attains a completely spiritual body fit to render service to the transcendental couple, Radha and Krishna. Savo padi vinimuktam tat para vena nirmalam. Chaitanya Charitamrita 19, text 170. When one is situated in a spiritual body, which is beyond this gross and subtle material body, he is fit to serve Radha and Krishna. That body is called Siddhadeha. The living entity attains a particular type of gross body in accordance with his past activities and mental condition. In this life, the mental condition changes in different ways, and the same living entity gets another body in the next life according to his desires. The mind, intelligence, and false ego are always engaged in an attempt to dominate material nature. According to that subtle astral body, one attains a gross body to enjoy the objects of one's desires. According to the activities of his present body, one prepares another subtle body. And according to the subtle body, one attains another gross body. This is the process of material existence. However, when one is spiritually situated and does not desire a gross or subtle body, he attains his original spiritual body, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 9. Bhakteham puna janma naiti mam iti so Arjuna. I'll read that translation. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not upon leaving the body take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. One who is elevated to the spiritual world by the spiritual body and is situated either in a Goloka Vrindavan or another Vaikuntha planet, in the spiritual body there is no longer material desires, and one is fully satisfied by rendering service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Radha and Krishna. That is the platform of bhakti. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhaktir Uyache. Madhya chapter 19, text 170. We'll read that. Bhakti, or devotional service, means engage in all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all the senses. When the spiritual soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material desires, and one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So there's the recipe, many recipes. Uh-oh. When the spiritual body, mind, and senses are completely purified, one can render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his consort. In Vaikuntha, the consort is Lakshmi, and in Goloka Vrindavan, the consort is Srimati Radharani. The spiritual body, free from material contamination, one can serve Radha Krishna and Lakshmi Narayan. When one is thus spiritually situated, he no longer thinks of his own personal sense gratification. This spiritual body is called Siddhadeha, the body by which one can render transcendental service unto Radha and Krishna. The process is that of engaging the transcendental senses is in loving devotional service. This verse specifically mentions Siddha Bhave Paya, Radha Krishna Karana. Only transcendental elevated persons in the mood of the gopis can engage in the service of the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. Prabhupada there is repeating the verse. So he mentions both places, Lakshmi and Radha. Of course, in Vaikuntha, which is the entirety of the spiritual world, and Goloka Vrindavan is located in a part of the Vaikuntha. It's very confidential. It's king of all knowledge, as Prabhupada was talking yesterday. And you wouldn't know about it exists unless somebody told you about it. All types of religions talk about God. They talk about the existence of God. But we're taking it a step further. Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas have taken it a step further. Not just God is great, God possesses all these opulences, that he's the supreme Lord, but he's also the biggest cheat. You don't hear that in other religions. How this other nature that he has. But we're also cautioned to understand these things, his relationship with the gopis, and we've been really, discussing that in the first half of the 10th canto. These things had to be understood in the context, proper context that is given to us by the previous acharyas. And so the type of body we get, Siddhadeha, is based on our desire. And Lord Chaitanya revealed himself to so many different devotees. Some he revealed his Nrsingadev, some Vraha, some, because some of his associates were not just Krishna Bhaktis, but they were Ram Bhaktas. So based on how we approach him, and that's also based on a particular desire that we have. We head in a particular direction. And as we head into a direction, it's more and more of it is revealed to us. But in our practice, we're taught to approach in the mood of awe and reverence. This is the stages of faith. This is how we strengthen our faith. First off is Shraddha, Artana Vrita, Bhajana Kriya. And then we get to Nishta, becoming fixed. And this is the process of following the rules and regulations. There are means to get us somewhere. But in Krishna Loka, these rules and regulations, even though they're present, because the idea of that sneaking out of one's house in the middle of the night is inappropriate. So that context is there. But because the love is so deep, the love is so strong that you can't hold back that intense desire to go be with the Lord. So to worship in the mood of the gopis is very elevated here, as the Prabhupada said. So we'll continue here at text 230. And there's over another 100 texts here. So this is the whole chapter talks about this elevated process one goes through. And now we're at the topmost of that top level of that, talking about Krishna's relationship with Radharani. Now, and the only reason we know about it, we've read this already, the only reason we know about this is because of people who have that relationship, those who are gopis. They understand it. So they've revealed it because they've lived it. They have it. We can only get it from someone who participates in that Leela. Unless, 230, unless one follows in the footsteps of the gopis, he cannot attain the service of the lotus feet of Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj. If one is overcome by knowledge of the Lord's opulence, he cannot attain the Lord's lotus feet, even though he is engaged in devotional service. Purport. One can worship Lakshmi Narayana by the process of Vidhi-marg, worshiping the Lord with regulated principles according to the instructions of Shastra and the spiritual master. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Radha Krishna, cannot be directly worshipped by this process. The dealings between Radha and Krishna and the gopis are devoid of the opulences of Lakshmi Narayana. The process of Vidya Marg, following the regulated principles, is utilized in the worship of Lakshmi Narayana. Whereas the process of spontaneous service, following the footsteps of the gopis, who are the denizens of Vrindavan, is transcendently more advanced and is the process whereby Radha and Krishna are worshipped. One cannot attain this elevated position while worshiping the Lord in his opulence. So we can't attain it by how we're worshiping it, but at the same time, we can't achieve it by how we're worshiping it. We can't go there directly. We have to be invited, Prabhupada said yesterday. We have to be chosen. That's what he told us yesterday. One cannot attain the elevated position while worshiping the Lord in his opulence. Those attracted by the conjugal love between Radha and Krishna must follow the footsteps of the gopis. Only then is it possible to enter the Lord's service in Goloka Vrindavan and directly associate with Radha and Krishna. 231. The unspoken example in this connection is the goddess of fortune, who worshiped Lord Krishna in order to attain his pastimes in Vrindavan. But due to her opulent lifestyle, she could not attain the service of Krishna in Vrindavan. When Lord Krishna was dancing with the gopis in the Rasa Leela, the gopis were embraced around the neck by the Lord's arms. This transcendental favor was never bestowed upon the goddess of fortune or other consorts in the spiritual world, nor was such a thing ever imagined by the most beautiful girls in the heavenly planets. Girls whose bodily luster and aroma resemble the beauty and fragrance of lotus flowers. And what to speak of worldly women, who may be very, very beautiful according to the material estimation. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto 47, text 60. After hearing this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Ramananda Roy. Both of them, embracing shoulder to shoulder, began to cry. The entire night was passed this way in ecstatic love of Godhead. In the morning, they both departed to tend to their respective duties. Before departing from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Roy fell to the ground and caught hold of the Lord's lotus feet. He then spoke submissively as follows. Sri Ramananda Roy said, "You have come here to show me your causeless mercy. Therefore stay here for at least 10 days and purify my polluted mind. But for you, there is no one who can deliver all the living entities, for you alone can deliver love of Krishna." The Lord replied, "Having heard about your good qualities, I have come here. I've come to hear about Krishna from you and thus purify my mind. Now that I have actually seen your glories, what I heard about you is confirmed. As far as the pastimes of Radha and Krishna in the loving mood are concerned, you are the limit of knowledge." Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found Ramananda Roy to be the best authority in transcendental knowledge of the loving affairs between Radha and Krishna. In this verse, the Lord actually states that Ramananda Roy was the limit of this knowledge. 240. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "To say nothing of 10 days, as long as I live, I shall find it impossible to give up your company. You and I shall remain together at Jagannath Puri. We shall pass our time together in joy, talking about Krishna and his pastimes." In this way, they both departed to perform their respective duties. Then in the evening, Ramananda Roy returned to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thus they met time and time again, sitting in a secluded place and jubilantly discussing devotional service by the question and answer process. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked the questions, and Sri Ramananda Roy gave the answers. In this way, they engaged in discussion throughout the night. And this is actually discussed so many times about who's qualified to be a Brahmin. It's by qualification. It's not, Ramananda Roy was not a Brahmin. And Lord Chaitanya was a sannyas and a Brahmin, but sitting there listening to Ramananda Roy and taking questions back and forth. People can write it off as, oh, Ramananda Roy is an eternal associate, but there's more to it there. There's an example being set here. It's not just a symbolism. It's an important event. Because often caste Brahmins and smartas would try to break down. So these are some of the examples used to demonstrate that this process of guru-disciple can be done with anybody. It has nothing to do with one's bodily concept of life. It really doesn't have to come to some vote, some political process where some people are voted in and some people are voted out. Those aren't the requisitions. One has to understand who Krishna is. So in the examples Prabhupada, even Saraswati, a little girl was Prabhupada called her because she told somebody who Krishna was. She acted as a guru. So there's many examples. So 245. On the occasion, the Lord inquired, of all types of education, which is the most important? Ramananda Roy replied, no education is important other than the transcendental devotional service of Krishna. Purport. So text 245 to 257 are all questions and answers between Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Ramananda Roy. In these exchanges, there's an attempt to show the difference between material and spiritual existence. Education in Krishna consciousness is always transcendental and is the best of all forms of education. Material education aims at increasing the activities of the material sense gratification. Beyond material sense gratification is another negative form of knowledge called Brahmavidya, or impersonal, transcendental knowledge. But beyond that Brahmavidya, or knowledge of the impersonal Brahman, is knowledge of devotional service to the Supreme Lord Vishnu. This knowledge is higher. And higher still is devotional service to Krishna, which is the topmost form of education. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, Chapter 29, text 49, Tat Kamar Hari Tosam Yatsa Vijaya Tan Matir Yada. Work meant for pleasing the Supreme Lord is the best, and the education that enhances one Krishna consciousness is the best. So here again, he's talking about that topmost Rajavidya knowledge. Yesterday, Prabhupada was bringing the point out. Also, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, chapter 5, text 23 through 24. Shravanam Kirtam Vishnu Smaranam Param Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasham Shakrim Atma Nivedanam Iti Pumsar Pita Vishnu Bhaktish Chainava Lakshana Kieta Bhagavat Yat Tan Mane Ticham Uttamam. This is a statement given by Prahlad in answer to a question raised by his father. Prahlad Maharaj said, to hear or chant about Lord Vishnu, to remember him, to serve his lotus feet, to worship him, to offer prayers to him, to become his servant and his friend, to sacrifice everything for his service. All these are varieties of devotional service. One who is engaged in such activities is understood to be educated to the topmost perfection. 246. Any questions, any comments, anything? Getting off point here. 246. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then asked Ramananda Roy, out of all glorious activities, which is the most glorious? Ramananda Roy replied, that person who's reputed to be the devotee of Lord Krishna enjoys the utmost fame and glory. Purport. The greatest reputation a living being can have is to be a devotee of Krishna and to act in Krishna consciousness. In the material world, everyone is trying to be famous by accumulating a large bank balance or material opulence. There is a steady competition among karmis attempting to advance in a wealthy society. The whole world is turning in accordance with that competitive mood. But this kind of name and fame is temporary, for it lasts only as long as the temporary material body exists. One may become famous as a Brahmagan or impersonalist scholar, or one may become a material opulent person. In either case, such reputations are inferior to the reputation of Krishna's devotee. In the Garuda Purana, it is stated, Kala Bhagavatam Narlabam Naiva Labhyate Brahma Rudra Pado Driksham Guruna Haitam Mama. In the age of Kali, the fame of one who is known as a great devotee is very rare. However, such a position is superior to that of the great demigods like Brahma and Mahadev. This is the opinion of all spiritual masters. In the Ithasa Samucha, Narada tells Pundarik, Janmatara Sahasresu Yashashad Budir Idrishi Dasoham Vasudevasya Sarva Lokam Samud Aret. After many, many births, when a person realized that he is the eternal servant of Vasudeva, he can deliver all the worlds. In the Adi Purana, in a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, it is said, Bhaktanam Agdu Jahiti Bhuktayash Shruti Bi Saha. The most exalted position of liberation is given by the Vedic knowledge. Everyone follows in the footsteps of the devotee. Similarly, in the Brihan Naradiya Purana, it is further stated, Ajapi cha muni shreshta brahmaja api devata. Until now, even the great demigods like Brahma and Lord Shiva did not know the influence of a devotee. The Garuda Purana also states, we're not going to be able to this too much, this is a super long purport, so we'll stop there. Thank you very much. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvanda Maravindanalayatam Bhagavatam Samasitam Buddhasundaram Nandar Bhako Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Andaniya Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Bhakti Kayanti Gira Preganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam
Bhajami. Namaha Vishnupataya Krishna Pristaya Bhutanai Srimate Bhaktivedanta Samadhi Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacham Dehi Nivesesha Shunyavade Vasachade Charande Nivesesha Ashachade Jai Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nana Sri Advaita Gajana Shiva Sadi Gaura Krishna Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Waiter, Jada Shiva Sade, no friend. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Gachara Shiva Sade Goloka Brenda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Radha looking on Radha looking on Radha looking on Radha looking on Radhe, 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 Radhe. Radhe, 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 Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa.
Dordaiva midrishami hajjani nanuraga. Renada pi sunichena tarora pi suhishuna. Amani namana dena kirtaniya sadahari. Nadanam najanam nasundarim. Kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. Mama janmani janmani ishvare. Bhavatad bhaktir hoitaki twai. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram. Patitam mam vishame ravam buddha. Kripayata vabada pankajas. Tita duli sadrashim vachintaya. Nayanam galarushudaraya. Padanam gadgadaradaya gura. Kulakar nishitam vapukada. Tavanama grahane bhavishyati. Yugayatam nimishena. Chakshusha pravashayatam. Shunayatam jagat sarvam. Govindam virahename. Aslishyava padaratam panastumam. Adarshanam marma hata karotuva. Yata tatava vindato lampato. Mat prananata strusa evana para. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name of the Lord can render all benediction living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of and ready to offer all others respect. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O Sadhama Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I fall into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my cup and when will the hair body stand in end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, considering a moment to be like 12 years or more, tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall be, so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Hey, how do you go? Sankirtan, Ki, Sankirtan. So please join us today at Weaver Street Market here in Hillsborough, 11:30 to 1:30 for Harinam Sankirtan. Hari Hari Bo.